This mood management series may seem professorial. Modifying moods requires information, perspective, and a fresh view of your life and your goals.
I'm a student. I wish they would take me more seriously.
I'm a homemaker, but sometimes I get bored.
Too much internet. I really need some friends. Mood management is for anyone. Raising a family can be challenging. Making business, career, or life choices is full of alternatives and crossroads. The workbook, Mood Management, Make Good Feelings Linger and Bad Feelings Fade by Dr. Thomas Marra can help.
You saw in my workbook trailer that mood management is for anyone and everyone who have an issue or two that, once resolved or improved, could make them a better person. Today's program is how to be skillful in doing just that. Now, why would I make such an outlandish statement like mood management is for anyone and everyone? Because you don't have to be mentally disordered to have moods. Everyone has moods. Sometimes those moods are great, and we want to keep them because they both feel good and they happily sweep us through the day. But sometimes our moods are not so great, like frustration, irritability, sadness, tiredness, anger, or allowing procrastination. For just a minute, for educational purposes, I want to clarify what a mental disorder is. Well, here we have it. It's the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, or DSM, brought to us by our friends at the American Psychiatric Association. Well, it's almost 1,000 pages long, 991 pages to be exact. And if you read it, as I have, you'll basically find out that almost everyone and anyone has a mental disorder. And just to let you know, the U.S. is not singled out, because this manual is available in 18 languages, including Chinese, Croatian, Danish, French, German, Greek, Hungarian, Italian, Spanish. Well, you get the picture. If you can't find yourself, at least in part, in one of these pages, then maybe you really don't exist. Now, don't get me wrong. Mental disorders do exist. I spent all of my adulthood treating them. And the National Institute of Mental Health and Substance Abuse estimates that at one or more points in our life, 25% of the population will suffer from one. But we don't use this book, or any book, even though it's useful to many professionals, because mood management and leading your life skillfully does not require, use, or assume a diagnosis. It assumes a mood. Sometimes good moods we wish to prolong, and sometimes poor moods we wish to have fade. So what is skillful? Our handy dictionary defines skillful as adept, accomplished, adroit, deft, expert, masterful, practiced, workmanlike, and the opposite of amateurish, artless, rude, or unprofessional.
Forget those value things. Just do what feels good now.
Look to your true values. Desires are temporary. Goals, aspirations, and the future matter the most.
Okay, so the devil angel thing is corny and amateurish, the opposite of skillful that is the subject of this presentation. But I want to use it nevertheless to illustrate that there are always competing thoughts, contradictory emotions, polemic environmental demands. Moods arise out of these contradictions, competitions, and the compelling forces behind choice.
The 4 C's are causal factors. That means that our feelings or our emotions or our moods are all created, continued, and compel us in certain directions. And we need to take note of that. We create our feelings. Now, some people may object to this, but we do create our feelings. Usually it is not a Mack truck that ran into our home residence and, unbeknownst to us, created a new feeling of outrage, surprise, horror, and so forth. Usually, it is because we placed ourselves in a situation with our values, our innermost desires, and as a result of the competition between our desires and the environment, we decide to go forward. We continue to live in that environment, even if sometimes the results are negative. There are compelling forces, always. If it was not compelling, if it was not important to you, you would have resolved the situation in an instant. If it was simply an insect, a fly, that was bothering you, you would have swatted it, pushed it away, and it wouldn't have been of any concern to you. But there are compelling forces in our lives that make things important. It's more than an insect. It's more than an annoyance. We want love. We want acceptance. We want relationships. We want to be recognized. There are so many things we want in our lives. So we want and should create them when they're positive, and we should continue them when they're negative. We should evaluate all the competition, all the different values that we have, and which one is going to serve us in the moment. And also recognize that sometimes the compelling forces, the impetus between our simple reactionary response and our long-term goals, we evaluate long-term versus short-term.
So we want to be skillful, masterful, and practiced in managing our moods. We do this by identifying the mood, the behavior or reaction you give to the mood, identifying what causes the mood, and either increasing those causal factors if we want to grow and sustain those feelings or moods, and decreasing those causal factors if we want to diminish or end those feelings or moods. It sounds simple, but it's not. My entire book is devoted to achieving that process. Mood management is complex as a framework, but the specific steps are broken down such that the complexity fades and simplicity and achievability takes its place. Using the framework or structure of mood management presented in this workbook, you will embody skillful means. Skillfulness demands a thorough examination of your values, your beliefs, your goals, and the context within which you live.
Now let's take a closer look at values and what they mean to us and how we can deploy them. Our first example is honesty. Honesty is telling the truth, being real with yourself and others about who you are, what you want, and what you need to live your life in the most authentic way possible. This may sound self-evident, but let's look at some of the words. Truth. I must believe that what I'm saying is the truth, but what if I'm wrong? Let me give you an example. I was in a very large psychological group where I was on the board of directors, and I was the last to speak, and I said something about what I believed were facts, and in fact they were laws regarding the practice of psychology. And immediately during the break, somebody came up to me and said, "You were being disingenuous." Well, since it was pretty immediate feedback, I didn't know exactly what the word disingenuous meant. So I said, well, I'll get back to you on that. And when I went home, I almost immediately looked up the word disingenuous. Well, it's a politically correct term for you lied. You didn't tell the truth. You knew the truth, but you misstated it. So I went and I checked my facts. I looked up the laws. I printed them out. I highlighted the relevant sections. I sent them to the person who objected through the mail, and he came back and apologized to me. But what if I had been wrong? What if I had misstated my beliefs about what the law said, but I was wrong and he was right? Being honest simply means you state the facts as you see them at the time, as your belief, your memory, your recollection informs you. Does not mean you're right. Well, even if we're wrong, trying to be honest, and there's this sincere desire to promote the truth, that then empowers us. It enables us to develop consistency in how we're presenting the facts. It makes us feel good when we exhibit it or perform it, and it's not really hard to do if you practice it. One of the effects is it will have other people believe in you more readily, and people will trust you. Well, one effect of the above is that when you're consistently honest, you don't have to try to remember the last time you were dishonest, because you haven't been. Let's take a look at another value, integrity. Well, integrity involves the previous discussion about honesty, but it goes further than that. It's about having strong moral principles regarding that honesty, a moral uprightness, the state of being whole and undivided, that our own ethics make us undiminished. Well, let's look at some of those words. We all know what honesty means. We discussed that. And we know what moral principles are. That's the subject of these values. But what is the state of being whole and undivided? I'm going to use an example that may upset some of you. Let's look at the whole divisiveness around the values of pro-choice and pro-life. It's divisive probably not just in our country, but across the planet. There are strong feelings on both sides. But let's use an example. Let's say I'm an advocate, and have been an advocate, for pro-life. And I decide to submit my name for the Supreme Court of the United States, and that means I have to be vetted by the Senate in order to be confirmed. And I have told in the past that I am a pro-lifer. But then, I'm making this up, 2 women from high school and 3 women from college come forth with allegations that I not only encouraged them to have an abortion after I impregnated them, but I paid for it, and they have the records to prove that. Well, being whole and undivided means that I don't have one set of values for myself. I believe in pro-life only when it's convenient. I believe in pro-life for you, but for me, when it was inconvenient, I instead opted for pro-choice because I wasn't ready to raise a child, to support a child. It wasn't part of my plan. Well, having one set of standards for others and another set of standards for ourselves is not being whole and undivided, and it diminishes my integrity. But let's say that's not the case, and we do have integrity, and you can feel really good about that. It means that your word or intent can really be counted upon, and our reputation is enhanced as a result of that, and people will be more willing to engage with us in both business and personal relationships. It makes us much more predictable. Now let's look at the value of compassion. The very first phrase, fellow feeling. I love that phrase. Fellow feeling. It means you're a member of the same tribe, the same family. The other person is your sister, your brother, your mother, your father. He's your neighbor, your cohort, your fellow student. It's a way of saying I'm in the same boat with you, that we are the same and not so much different. So compassion is about understanding the feelings, the misfortunes of others, and a wish to reduce it. Let's differentiate compassion from pity. Now, pity is not a bad thing. Let's say somebody you know, their house burns down, and you say to yourself or even to others, "Boy, I'm glad that didn't happen to me." Well, that's different than compassion. That would be pity. Compassion would be saying to yourself or to others something like, "I can imagine how I would feel if my house burned down. How much of a loss I would feel to not have my mementos, my cherished items, the things that prompted memories from the past, things that rekindled good feelings and good times, the sense of safety that came with having my own home and my own things." Compassion, thus, is about feeling about the misfortunes of others and wishing that it hadn't happened, or even wanting to reduce it. Now, compassion also should be differentiated from a desire to fix it. I'm sure all of us know people who, when we express an emotion, express a feeling from an experience, and people rush in to try to solve our problem so we don't have to feel that feeling anymore. Well, if you only did this and the other thing and take this, do this instead, then you won't have to feel that feeling. That kind of problem solving, which is based on a desire to reduce the unfortunate or ill feelings that we're having, doesn't feel good. Simply being able to say to someone, "I can imagine how that feels," is much more powerful and compassionate, because then people are willing to discuss their true feelings with you. They'll trust you, they'll feel closer to you, and in the end, you will feel good. Love. Boy, love is a good one. Probably thousands, if not millions, of philosophers and authors have written billions of books over time about love, how it's embodied, how it's expressed, what it means. There can be so many definitions of love, but one is that it's a strong attraction based on attachment. That's self-evident. It's about devotion and admiration. Well, let's look at some of the words here. Devotion means love is not something that is convenient necessarily. When you're devoted to somebody, you're with them through the thick and the thin. You don't only love them when they give you what you want, but you love them when they frustrate you or annoy you or do something untowards that you don't like. Love is about being unselfish. Unselfish. That means love is not about us. It's about the art of giving it. We don't love in order to get something back. Loyalty. Loyalty and love does not mean that if you love me, you always have to agree with me. You always have to do what I say. You always must act and speak the way I want you to, and in consonance, in agreement with me. It's benevolent. Benevolent means love should feel good. It is to embellish, not to imprison. Well, let's say we love, and we love effectively. It means that you're bonded to somebody. It's through those difficult times as well as the good times, and it has inherent meaning. Love is a feeling that justifies itself. And when you feel it, it makes you feel good. Let's talk about courage. Courage is the mental or moral strength. Well, I haven't thought this through, but I guess mental strength means it comes from your thoughts, and moral means it comes from your values. But anyway, you get this strength to venture. Venture means to go out, to go someplace perhaps you've not gone to before, or maybe a place that you have gone to before that brought bad things. But you're willing to do it. You're willing to persevere, to go forward in spite of danger and fear and difficulty. Valor. I'll give you again another personal example that involves courage on my part. And some of you may think this is minute, but it wasn't to me at the time. When I was a high schooler, I was just undone with anxiety. And unfortunately, my anxiety was very visible because I shook. My hands shook. There was a tremor in my hands that was inconceivably obvious to others. And of course, I brought a different feeling, one of shame, which we're not going to talk about right now. Well, I asked my mother to take me to my personal physician because I thought there was something wrong with me. It's just not normal. It's not right that somebody should shake so much all the time. So I went to the doctor. My mother agreed to take me there. And I explained to the doctor what was happening. And he said, well, give me an example. I said, well, in my English classes in high school, they want me to give, an oral report on either something I've read or something I've written. And when I get in front of the class, I just shake. And it's so embarrassing. Well, of course, I wanted some kind of drug, which wouldn't have been a bad thing at the time, to solve the problem. Well, that wouldn't have been very courageous on my part, would it? Well, he gave me a different prescription instead. He said, I want you to take speech and debate. I said, are you crazy? You're telling me to do exactly what I'm fearful of. He says, take speech and debate, and your anxiety will go away because you'll practice. He didn't use this word, but being courageous. Well, it changed my life, actually, because I developed confidence that I could do something that was difficult, fearful, dangerous to me. It allowed me to do something that I otherwise wanted to avoid. It prepared me to handle hurdles. It helped me to sustain efforts in the face of my fear. And others did give me admiration. because I would do what they themselves didn't want to do. And it made me feel stronger. Peace of mind. We all seek that. Almost all of us. There are thrill seekers among us who like the spice of life, but at the end of the day, everyone wants a sense of serenity, a sense of safety, a sense of calmness, tranquility, and a repose. A repose is a rest, a relaxation, an inactivity, a stillness, an idleness that is dignified and not avoidant, but it involves composure. In some ways, peace of mind means we are satisfied in this moment. And that satisfaction, that peace of mind, decreases our sense of urgency. And that is incredibly important because urgency, the will to act now, to change things now, can bring impulsivity. And I'm not going to focus a lot on this because I'm going to have another presentation based solely on this. It increases our broad attention. With a peace of mind, we're able to look at more of what's going on in the environment, more of what's going on inside of us, more of the transaction between the inside and the outside. And it brings not only peacefulness and tranquility, but it also brings better decision-making, better processing of life events, better attention to our values and our goals. And when we have peace of mind, it just feels good. We've reviewed a few values, and you can think of many more. Here on the screen are many more, and you can think of others. But think about one of the common elements, the thread that weaves together similarities in all the values we've discussed thus far. If values are right for us, they make us feel good and not bad. When we implement a value, we are embellished and we are more wholly human and consistent with ourselves.
So we have to identify the core values we wish to drive our lives, as well as our belief system or schemas, and see how they correlate or conflict. If I believe I'm a fearful type of person, then it is difficult to be courageous. Hopefully we choose to reduce our fear and live by the value of courage. Similarly, if we want to elevate the value of love in our life, but we think that we are suspicious and unforgiving, then that is the issue we need to tackle. A schema is an organized, well, maybe not so organized, but connected set of beliefs and thoughts that we use. It is like a filter, like a set of lenses through which we see the world. Some schemas are productive. They work for us. For example, if I value predictability and my thoughts are about how to repeat experiences that I've had in the past, I don't value novelty or thrills, and I seek to avoid new experiences. Well, this works for me, as long as I'm happy. But let's say I value predictability and I find myself bored a lot, and this value is not working for me. I need to increase my value on exploration and discovery, probably in small steps. Probably your grandma once told you, practice makes perfect.
Remember, Your grandma was a pest anyway.
Remember what Grandma said.
It means weighing the situation and how it feels and how we want it to feel. It means changing the situation if the situation is making us feel something we don't want to feel. And it means creating new and different situations we can place ourselves in to feel good. But it is more than that also. It means paying attention not just to the external situation we are in, but also the internal situation, my thoughts, my memories, my past. Much of the time it is not our external environment that prompts or causes our moods. It is our internal environment. How much you think about, ruminate, and rekindle old feelings from the past. Perhaps you're saying to yourself, but this is not the past that haunts me. It is the present that frustrates, or even more powerful feelings like rage, anger, loss, that make you feel bad, that make me feel bad. And you would be right. Often it is not the past. It is us. We make it happen in the here and now. Most often, and this is a horrible thing to accept, we create and continue our misery. But it begs a question. If she, or he, or it is not assaulting my ego right now, then what is? If the situation is over, but I feel even more intensely than I did when it happened, what is causing that? It is not about blame. It is about who or what is responsible for good and bad moods. It is about how you can modify, change, increase, or decrease the moods you have. Not blame. It is about influence. What can I do to make it different or sustain the same mood? You can learn a lot from watching these mood management videos. It can help you ponder, reconsider, maybe even rethink yourself in relationship to your mood. But in my workbook, Mood Management, How to Make Good Feelings Linger and Bad Feelings Fade, by me, Dr. Thomas Marra, and it's available from Archway Publishing, you're offered a much more synthetic, a synthesis, and a systematic approach.